Hi, everyone. How's it going today? I'm Shane Snipes, and you're chatting here with some of the guests for this week's Global Entrepreneurship Week with the Borough Manhattan Community College Business Degree Program, and specifically the Small Business Entrepreneurship Degree Program. This eShip show is a really special one. All this week, we've had entrepreneurs from all over New York City chatting with us. Yesterday, we had a fantastic event. Check that video out too. But I just wanted to let you know, if you have questions for us, make sure you hashtag us at Ask the Entrepreneur, or you can at eShip BMCC. There's so many different ways you can talk with us. And that's one of the cool things about being on the internet is there are all these different ways that you can interact with us. Today, we're talking with Talonya Geary. She's an amazing author who's written and coached many people through the years. She's got many claims to fame, many of great folks who she's worked with, and we're going to cover some of those. But more importantly, I just want to chat with you about the work that you're working on at this point and some of the things that we can do ourselves, because I feel like whenever I chat with entrepreneurs, I always find it fascinating and beautiful that we all come at entrepreneurship with our own kind of heart first, right? And your book that you've just come out with called Go Do, right here behind me on my shoulder, is quite amazing. I've gotten through it, and now I'm doing a second read because I wanted to take some notes for this call, and for us to really get a chance to chat about some of the things that drove you to write the book, but also have inspired you to be an entrepreneur through the years. So we'll dive into all those nooks and crannies, I hope. And like I said, I'm lucky. I feel like I'm talking to a friend because we've met a couple times before.
Yep.
And each time we meet, I always feel like I'm chatting with like my sister that I didn't know I had.
I love that. That's such a good feeling, or it's such a good, I think that's one of the highest compliments you can give to somebody, because that connection piece, I think, is what's most important.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll start out with the really straightforward questions. Things like, what was your first inclination that you were an entrepreneur? So how did you kind of take your first steps into entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you for reading the book. That to me is the biggest honor as an author. It's great to have people support it and buy it, and that's exciting. But when they actually digest the work and absorb the story, that's a huge honor. So thank you for that. Regarding the entrepreneur question, I almost feel like I didn't have a choice to become one. I was raised in an entrepreneurial family, some successful entrepreneurs and some probably still trying to make that break. But I learned from a young age. I started my first business when I was 8 years old. I always start off with my keynotes, just sharing that story, because I think it's important for entrepreneurs to really understand that being an entrepreneur is very much an identity. And I think that we glamorize being an entrepreneur, and we kind of publish it as this, this famous or glamorous thing to be. And I think you either are one or you're not. So I knew I was one at a young age, because I had this insatiable appetite to create something out of nothing. And starting my first business at 8, which was a lawn mowing business, for those of you curious, was the first time I had that thrill of having an idea and literally having something start from nothing but an idea and converting it into where I was exchanging something from somebody for that. So they were paying me to deliver a product or service. And to me, it was just the coolest experience to see it close like that. So I think I was just born into it. And I think that entrepreneurs are first and foremost creators. They're creative people, and they almost can't stand, they can't help but be that. So that's where I started. I think it was a little bit of nature and nurture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've been one ever since. And I can't imagine any other way for me.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like it was the same for me when I think about my family who were commercial artists. My dad was a sign painter and a mural artist and did all kinds of different art. And my mom was a hairstylist for years. So she always had to work. If her clients didn't like the work that she did, she didn't have work. You know what I mean? It's one of those direct kind of situations. And then she moved into commercial art with my dad. So it's just been one of those things. It's kind of stayed in the family that way. And to be an artist and a entrepreneur is not an easy thing, I have to say. And I can attest to that, having grown up in various states of financial distress and just all kinds of things.
Sure. It makes total sense. I mean, I think that artist entrepreneurs that really make it, I think, are some of the unsung heroes and heroines of our time.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about when you first went in to speak with that first client, the first lawn mowing client that you had.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I mean, how did you get over the initial fear that people have? The reason why I like talking about these types of things in our podcast is oftentimes I find that people get wrapped up in the nitty gritty, and it's oftentimes in an entrepreneurial situation, it's more about what fears do we have that we can overcome? How can we do that?
Well, that's a good question. And in full transparency, there are times that I still struggle with that sell. How do you overcome the selling part? And if I go back to the very first time, I think it was really about being excited about what you were offering and being more excited and focused on the value. At the time, I didn't know it was value, but being more excited about what you were providing for somebody, what problem you were solving for them, and being so in tune with the problem you were solving for them, more than what the cost of it was or what people were going to have to give up in order to have it. So I just remember being a kid and being excited about, I grew up in Texas. So everybody, like mowing lawns was the way of life for people in Texas. And I lived in a very typical suburban area. And so I noticed that it was a problem that everybody had trying to keep up with their lawns. And because I was a creator, I saw, I can help fix that. And because I had a big brother who I could leverage to actually do most of the work, I think I just figured out that there was this recipe here that could work, and I got excited about being able to see if it could work. And that's where I think entrepreneurs are different than those who don't go down the entrepreneur route, like the leader managers out there, is being excited about seeing if something will work, and being excited in your vision. Like, will somebody else see this like me, and will they believe me, or will they buy my passion for this vision of this problem I'm going to solve? And so I get really, really excited about that part. And when I feel the nerves, and like you said, like the getting wrapped up in the details and the minutia, when I find myself falling into that, because I do, I have learned and I've conditioned myself to go back to, how can you add value? Where can you add value? And what problems can you continually solve for people and get excited about being able to solve them? And there are some speakers out there, by the way, and I'm an evangelist about this, that like to, and I won't say their names, but they're pretty well known, and they say things about, business is there's no emotion in business. And I just couldn't disagree with that more. I feel like that's one of the most misleading statements that we feed people in business, and it just doesn't serve people. So I think business is a spiritual game for sure. I hear Tony Robbins say that all the time. And so it's absolutely about emotion. And I think that the more emotion and more excitement and passion you can find for what you do, the more successful it will be.
That's great. That's great. As you transitioned, from young adulthood to adulthood, and I know we've all had our trials and tribulations at that age. And as an entrepreneurial spirit, I think it's really interesting to hear some of the ways that you've kind of pulled yourself through that time frame, and what it was like for you to overcome some of those situations that you were in.
Yeah. Well, the book is you've read it now, so I don't hold back a lot.
You don't hold back anything. Wait. You don't hold back. Well, you might hold back stuff, but the stuff that I've read is really heartfelt. Like, you dig into who you are when you're telling this story. You don't tell, like, it's not one of those how-to books. It's like, this is me. Here's how I did it. And it's just so lovely that way.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because when I first wrote the book, I was so concerned with being an image of a successful entrepreneur, and I was so wrapped up in feeling like I needed to present this image and this identity, because if I didn't present that identity, then people wouldn't believe I was successful. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. When I finally sat down in February of 2017 and was like, I'm going to finally marry this book, what was missing in it was the truth. And the truth is all of that transparency that I share, and the vulnerability, and like the worst times of my life, because those worst times were, in my mind, when I look back at them, that was the universe, that was infinite intelligence, that was a higher power saying, how bad do you want this? How bad do you want what you're going after? And we have to become somebody to get it. I don't believe that it is just doing. I think that we have to, become, and we have to experience and open up and share, because then we're relatable. I can tell you the book you would have read December of 2016 would have been a totally different person. We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation, because it was so lacking the truth. So I've forgotten your original question, but I think it's really about, you're saying, how do you get through some of those times? But I'll pause.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about people moving from late adolescence to young adulthood. There's so many things that they're feeling, and I get it from my own students. I get it from them in class, and they come and see me in my office, and there's just so many things that are pulling at them, especially in an urban environment like New York City.
Yeah.
And I think we all have struggles, and we just need to talk about those struggles and what we did to get through them.
Yeah, it's true. I'm writing some notes here because I love some of the things you're saying. So anytime I hear that there's a pull, something's pulling at me, and I write a whole chapter on character, that's a signal for me that I have to get reconnected to who I am, and to get really clear about who I am, and to be 100% okay with who I am, because every person has a gift, every person has strengths, and every person also has blind spots and has weaknesses. And I feel like we're in such a challenging time as entrepreneurs, because we're inundated with messages, and we're being primed by our environment that things are easy for others, and that, well, this person has this success and it's because he, she, or they had access to this. And it's not true. I feel like those who become and reach success are those who spend a lot of time getting to know and concretely connected to who they are. And they take the time to identify who they are, and then they reconnect over and over and over again with who they are, which is why I devoted an entire chapter to it. When things pull, I think it's time to go the opposite direction, and to go within, and to make it actionable. In the book, I tell people to just write a story about who you are, and go back and read it, and then put a box around or circle around the words that are absolutely essential to who you are. And this year, I had 4 words that I started the year off just rewriting and re-saying to myself, because I wanted to make sure that I stayed true to those 4 words, which are: I'm clear, I'm focused, I am disciplined, and I'm consistent. So I know that's who I am this year in 2018. So when things pull at me, I go back and say, how do I get clear? How do I get focused? How do I become even more disciplined? And how do I add more consistency, or create more consistency in my mind, in my body, and my spirit, and the world around me?
Yeah, if I were to look back at, if I were to pull out my old MacBook, I think it's in storage, or I may have lost it. Anyway, I used to have the old 3.5 floppy disks that people used to have, and they put it in their computer. I still have all of those in storage somewhere, and they need to be digitized, because we have the cloud now. But I used to write about all these things. This was my this was how I discovered my path to being a Fulbright, how I discovered my path to traveling overseas and starting organizations. It was by constantly reading to myself and
Mm.
exploring who I was by talking to myself in terms of like digesting things and projecting forward and writing about the future and who I wanted to be and where I wanted to be. So when I was reading your book, I'm like reading all these things going, oh my God, this is like my how-to manual and I don't know what the culmination of different things that I read at that time. I read stuff like Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I read like tons of other books back then that kind of prodded me in this direction of self-discovery.
Yeah.
So your book harkens directly into that. So when you're talking about these things and you're really focused in on self-discovery, what are some of the things that you might, what are some, not mistakes, but what are some pitfalls that people might fall into when they start down this process?
Oh man, so, comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I just like I say that to myself all the time. And you know, there's this dichotomy. I love to surround myself with really successful people, and I'm intentional about it. And you know, I think it's Peter Drucker that says that I think it's Peter Drucker, you're the average of the 5 people around you, or he probably stole that from somebody else who stole it from somebody else. But I believe that. And so I'm constantly evaluating the 5 people or the 5 networks or the 5 influences around me to make sure that they're keeping things up for me. And it's not always financial. It's who's keeping my game up spiritually, who's keeping my game up financially, who's keeping my game up physically and health wise, who's keeping my game up with my career. So I think that's the light side of that as a technique and a strategy. The dark side of that is I could fall into the pitfalls of comparing myself to them when we have completely opposite strengths and we have completely opposite blind spots. We have completely opposite environments and priming. And so I think that when I find myself starting to compare myself, again, that's time to rein it back in and to say, what can I learn from this successful person? In what area are they successful so I can model them? And who am I? And does that make sense for me? I think people forget that they have to be unbelievably intentional with their resources.
Yeah, we do. And time is not an infinite resource that we have. So,
No, my most valuable resource is my energy. And then it's my time, because I could be here with you right now for 45 minutes and have low energy, and I don't feel like I'm going to serve anyone watching this. So energy is first and foremost for me. And so my question is always, is this going to help my energy? Is it going to help me grow more energy, or is this going to take it away? And don't get me wrong, I don't always make the right decision there, but that is the question. And then the second is this going to be a good investment of my time? And then the third is money. Money to me is the easiest resource to come in and out of our lives. Energy is not so much.
uh, excellent. So Javon has given me some questions
Ooh,
that
let's do it.
she's like, I want to know these things. So when you're looking at your use of this media that we now have, what are some of the benefits that you've found from it as far as getting in there, and whether it's things like this or your own YouTube or your own Facebook, your own Instagram? What are some of the ways that people who are beginning on the entrepreneurial journey can start to refine and organize those pieces?
Well, my first strategy is consistency. If I go back to one of those 4 words. So if you're going to do something, do it consistently. And I think we have all of these options available to us as far as using media, but find the one that matches you, your identity. Find the one that matches your brand, matches your story, and do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. If that means you do it once a week at Monday at 9 a.m., do it once a week on Monday at 9 a.m. for the rest of your life. And it will have a bigger impact if you do that than if you were to do 3 things randomly with no sense of order. So for me, I know one of my gifts that I've been given is my ability to move energetically and to, you know, I have a passion. I'm really passionate about my life. So for me, I have to be able to get in front of people. So the media that's the bet has the highest ROI for me is in the same room with people on a stage, or in a video, so they can get a little bit closer to that energy, because it's authentic for me. Second is, so again, speaking on stages is my number one outcome as far as growing my own mission and vision for my life. The second is anytime I can do video. So I do a Facebook Friday. It's called a hashtag Go Do Fridays. And it's 2 p.m. on Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern time in New York. And it's just a quick 10 to 15 minute check-in that I can, let people know what I'm up to, and also field questions and just get in front of them and keep reminding them this little simple phrase to go do. And then and after live in person, after video, then the next for me is just images. So I personally like to use Instagram a lot. I think that there's the light and dark side of it. The light is you get to have these great photos and you get to really kind of publish your life. The dark side, and I said this at the book signing event last Wednesday, is what image doesn't show is all the hard work. It doesn't show, I've been on a book tour since October 10th. And those pictures don't show the tired. They don't show the hustle. They don't show the how am I going to do this? They don't show the reality of what you're going through as a new author and an entrepreneur still trying to run businesses and grow visions. So those would be my order. But again, the strategy is whatever you do, like start small, do it consistently, and when it becomes such a consistent habit, add the second thing. Do it consistently, have it become a habit, add the third thing, but be consistent and again, intentional.
That's great. When you're thinking about one of your biggest challenges, what were the ways that you moved through that and got over it?
It depends on the challenge, but as soon as you said it, something popped up in me, and that is health first for me. Health is energy. Good health is good energy. Clean health is clean energy. And, I share the story with people that I quit drinking. And part of the reason why I was able to get that book done and it was so authentic is because I was so clear and I was so clean. And this isn't a public service announcement against alcohol or for against it at all. It's just for me, when I'm the most productive and the most creative and the most connected, not just to myself, but to others in my work, it's when my energy is so abundant and clean. And so for me, the first thing to overcome challenges is get back to who you are, like get back to your health and clean things up. Because I can guarantee you there's somebody watching this right now or who will eventually watch it, who just making that shift will change everything.
Yeah. It's one of those things when you take a moment to pause, even in that moment, when we let that words that you say really sink in and settle, is that we discover in that space the impact of what those words are. Mm-hmm. And I find oftentimes, especially when you're doing YouTube interviews and you're chatting with people, it's like rapid fire questions. And my own work in mindfulness and entrepreneurship education has driven me to take moments to try to change the pace of what's going on.
Oh, I like that.
And when I see the sort of momentum flying, sometimes I realize it's just flying because it's moving ahead, right? Like all things that are moving ahead quickly aren't always good just because they're moving ahead quickly.
Right.
And there's a sense, and this is one thing I got from your book too, is that when I was reading your book and I was doing the different things, I was thinking about all the different times that I journaled, like I told you before, all those different times that I journaled. And I said, wow, if I've journaled all these things at different times, what's it like for the person who's never done that before, who's never stepped down that path before? Mm-hmm. It's like that white space, that blank space that I left after you said those powerful words just a minute ago. Like that's the space that we get to fill up with our intention, right? That's the space we get to fill up with our goals and our positivity and the things that we want to accomplish in the world.
Mhm.
So when I had this opportunity to speak with you, I was just so excited to really spend some time understanding at the heart of your work and all the things that you've done through the years and all the people that you've spoken to. Each time that you start that process, for you, what are some of the first things that you start with to kind of get them on that pathway?
I want to be clear about the question. Is it the pathway to journaling? Is it the pathway to a new project? Is it, what's the pathway exactly? Because I might take different routes.
Yeah, so put it in a context that you would feel like explaining. Let's assume for a second that maybe it's a pathway to discovering your career, for
Mm,
example, or a pathway of changing your career or projecting into the future, some type of life.
yeah. I I tell people the same thing over, and whether I'm dealing with an executive, a C-suite level professional, or an aspiring leader, the advice is the same. And that is to get what's in your head out of your head. And I believe that this maybe answers two questions too, the one around journaling and then the second around the path. Journaling for me is about getting, I have all these ideas. And if you've ever read the book, and if you haven't, you should, called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, there is chapter 2 is all on desire. And what I love about that chapter, I literally have the book on my phone, because if I'm even, traveling to the airport, which I often am, or in the subway, I'll pull up that chapter and just read it over and over and over and over again. And the idea about it is that everything starts with our desire. And our desire, it starts from somewhere. Sometimes our desires aren't even ours. And so I think it's important for us to really understand which ones are truly ours. And the way to do that is to get it out of you. And I always use this analogy. I don't have anything here, but if I'm in front of a group of people, I say, imagine a balloon. And imagine all of that the air inside of the balloon are ideas. And as long as those ideas are in that balloon, the only thing that will ever come out of it is what's happening inside the balloon. But the moment you puncture that balloon and the air comes out, then that air now exists in a world where other resources can connect with it, can multiply with it, and can grow into new life. And so journaling to me is like that. It's getting the air out of the balloon onto the paper, so that one, we can see it in a new media, and two, it now has access to other energy and other support and resources that weren't available to it while it was in the balloon. So writing things down, again, I'm all about actionable things, not just flowery words, but the actionable step here is just take a moment. If you're somebody who doesn't have a rigorous, or consistent writing or journaling or goal setting practice, just start by writing each day. Maybe set a timer for 10 minutes, and for 10 minutes or even 3 minutes, write down what's in your head about what your vision is, or where you are, or what's in your way, or what's going right for you. It doesn't matter, just it could be free form. Just get it out of the balloon and get it onto paper. And believe that one go do step is going to lead to the next. So the advice is always the same. Get stuff out of your head, get it onto paper, and then connect with it in a new way. And just keep doing that over and over again, and it will lead to the next step.
Excellent. I think that's such great advice for so many reasons. I had a couple more questions about people had not only Javon, but a couple people yesterday had questions about mentors and the importance of mentors. My students have brought up these questions a lot. And is it important to have a mentor? And if so, how do you find them?
That is a good question. And I had never really thought about it until oddly enough, I thought about it, but I think it is essential to have a mentor. I think you have to have a mentor. And you have to have multiple mentors, because Your mentor in finance will not be your same mentor in, physical fitness or physical health. But find a mentor, and Tony, who's been one of the biggest mentors, if not the biggest mentor in my life for going on 11 years now, going on 12 years. And he's always of the belief, find somebody who's having success in an area you want. So you can't just find somebody who's happy or, achieving. They have to have the result you're looking for. And if that's a better body, if it's more money in the bank, if it's financial freedom, if it's successful, 7, 8, 9-figure business, go find that person and ask questions and soak them up and find multiple ones. And it's your mentorships or the mentors in your life, I believe, are your tipping point. They are what will separate you from success and failure, or success and learning, if I were Pitbull. So, my best friend of 30 years who was at the signing party, Paul Bloomberg, he does a lot of work in education, and he talks a lot about efficacy. And one of the 4 sources of efficacy that he talks about, and I use this all the time, is the need to have a model and the need to have like a coach and someone to give you feedback. And I believe he says it almost doubles the speed of learning just by having somebody in your life that can give you coaching and can give you feedback, good and bad, or positive and constructive. So it is us. I can't speak about it enough, the importance of it. And how you find one is, again, find one who has success in an area that you want to have success in. And then here's the key distinction, because I have people constantly looking to me for mentorship, which is an honor. However, when you approach a mentor, I think you have to always be prepared to answer this question: how can I add value to this mentor? How can I help this mentor? Because it's a two-way street, and the mentor will grow tired because the mentor has reached a place of mentorship because they have worked for it. And the mentors, I'm very much a believer in mastery, and mastery means you have enough now to serve others. However, I think that people, as your students and those watching this, as they go out to find the mentor, be prepared to know exactly what you want to ask from that mentor, and be prepared to offer something. Whether it's your time, whether it's your energy, whether it's your money, whatever those 3 resources make sense for the mentee, be prepared to come to that relationship, because that will serve the mentee way more than they realize.
Wow. Yeah, and it puts in a different context too, because when you come in with a level of service in mind, then you're immediately saying, okay, I think this is going to be a universal relationship of good for both of us.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's more like, well, I'm here to learn, so just tell me all the good stuff, or I'm here to get this, so just tell me all. And the students in my classes that are most successful are the ones that not only come to me, but come to me about really interesting things aside from what we're working on in class.
Yeah.
And, bring things to me and say like, oh, will you talk to me about this? Or I'm very interested in this particular thing. And they found a tangent that I had never even thought of that might relate to entrepreneurship. And then that makes my mind go crazy, right? So as mentors, we're going, okay, so here's how I can facilitate this. So here are the 2 people you need to talk to, because they know this industry better than I could ever know this industry.
Yep.
That's really exciting. And you inspired me to go get another mentor, because I need one right now for a project that I'm working on.
Oh, I love it. One thing too that I think is important, and I wrote this down as you were saying, what you were saying, is that we also need to make sure that we're reaching out for diversity in our mentors. I'm working with a client right now on a project, and it's a big client. And one of the things we're talking about a lot is diversity of thought. So, there's a lot of, diversity is a huge and important, timely topic right now in multiple spaces. And I think that what we forget to talk about is that I love going, like you said something which triggered me to remember that I like to have even mentors that are younger than me, that are like significantly younger than me, because they have diversity in thought. I don't need my mentors to always be based off of how old they are, how much money they make, or how many years experience they have. I need diversity of thought, because boy, do young people younger, the two of us, boy, did they have such diversity of thought that sometimes they just opened up a whole other world for me. I mean, and go find a mentor in a 10-year-old, like, mentor their creativity, or be a student of their curiosity. And, don't just look for mentors that fit into this box of what we're told as being a mentor. Go find, like if you're go find mentors that have different genders and different colors and backgrounds and ages and sexual orientations and identifications. The more diversity you can have there, you're going to go further, faster.
Excellent points. Excellent. And I have to follow up too with a question about purpose. It's in your book. You mentioned it a lot. You talk about ways of getting there, ways of finding purpose, ways of discovering different types of purpose. And what do you think about the need to have every company that's now created from now on have some sort of significant purpose driven behind it that doesn't just create jobs or create wealth, but does something more than that? In other words, do we as founders, as entrepreneurs, need to understand that we should really try to relate to our communities and relate to the groups of people around us that aren't necessarily directly our customers, but even maybe the trials and tribulations of our customers? How do we connect that to our business?
I believe, actually, I'm not just of the belief, I know with certainty that we are in a time, and have been for a while, since I believe it was like 2007 was the beginning of the transformation decade. For those who are interested, read a book called The Shift Age by David Houle. He has been a massive impact on my work over the last 10 years. But there's a chapter that he talks about, the humanity that we're putting back into business. So I believe, and there's the data to prove it, that your business has to be purpose driven these days. And it's because we are putting we're putting the humanity back into everyday life now, where the trend about 20 years ago was to make everything big and corporate and glossy and out of touch, because that's what the icon of success was. These days, and the voice was very much, meaning the brand and the voice that matched was very much like that. I mean, and I ran businesses that we tried to make ourselves look so much bigger than we were when it was the two of us at our dining room table. And these days, it's about getting the person back into it. So all of the marketing and branding language is all about the individual now. And that's why personal development is so hot right now. And it's not self-help anymore. It's personally developing people, and people need purpose. I think the Bible says without a purpose, man shall perish. And I think that business is the same. Business is just people. Business is people doing people things, people creating with other people, collaborating with people. So people perish without purpose. So your business has to have purpose. And it has to be so granular about who it's serving, and even if it's multiple people. And so the companies that are killing it right now are the ones who, and have been for a while, are the ones who've identified who they are, who they serve, and what's that common purpose that drives them and wakes them up. I mean, and I talk about this in the book, I'm so excited about these generations that are coming up behind us, because they're so driven by purpose, and it's exciting. And thank God, because boy, do we need it right now. So yeah, I can go on and on about purpose. I think one thing I'll end with, and then I'll pause, is purpose doesn't have to be out of reach. It doesn't have to be, I think we believe that purpose has to be like disruptive is the entrepreneur word. Like if it's not the Uber of, or if it's not the Airbnb of, then let's not pursue it. And I'm going to call BS on that, because purpose is found, and I talk about this in the book, purpose is found in the stacking of everyday decisions. The purpose behind, am I going to choose this or am I going to choose that? And the more decisions you choose with purpose, meaning if I want to be healthy, I always use health because it's just so easy for everybody universally to get. If I want to have purpose-driven health, I'm going to drink water over a Coke. If I want to be purpose-driven about my physical fitness, I'm going to go for a run versus sleeping in late. And so purpose is found in the stacking of those little decisions. And by making those little decisions, we bring purpose closer to us, and our ability to live on purpose is so, so close and accessible as a result.
Once again, you got to take that breath, let that sink in. Excellent. That's such an amazing point. So I just want to wrap up with one last question about New York City. Why? Because this is Global Entrepreneurship Week, and we're here in New York City. And I wanted to highlight as many New York entrepreneurs as I could over this week to really get out there and demonstrate ways that my students here at BMCC and students anywhere in the world who are watching this can discover things that are going on here in New York and maybe get inspired and move here. No, we
get ready.
More people in New York City, right? We could always use
if you do. I mean, I adore New York. I can't imagine a better place on the planet.
You told a story or espoused about how you got to New York City and what New York City was for you, what brought you here and pulled you here. I'd love for you to kind of share that with us.
Yeah. This is a story about the parking lot when I stopped.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was 10 years old, I remember walking. I was walking behind my mom, walking into a grocery store, and for some reason I stopped. I got hit by something as a 10-year-old and stopped in the middle of like that little drive part of the grocery store where cars go two ways. And I remember, just seeing this vision of wanting to be in New York City. And like I've shared on Wednesday last week, I don't have anybody in my family who had any connection, not a single connection to New York, but I've had this soul connection to it. And it hit me at a young age. And so I was obsessed with any movie or television show or anything. Like I used to watch Fame. To this day, I have no idea what Fame was about. I mean, I know it's about a dance school or performing arts school, but I would watch it and just daydream about being there, this magical place of New York. And I would never watch the storyline or understand what was going on because all I could watch was the life that was happening in New York. I remember like the sounds of the cars and the taxis and the infrastructure and the architecture, and all of it was just like, it is everything to me still. And so as a 10-year-old, I went my whole life going, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? And, life took me in various directions, from college to relationships to, getting myself into situations that made it hard to move, like, buying homes and stuff. And finally I got my break where those things, the window opened, and boy, I jumped headfirst into New York. And it wasn't until it was, I must have been 35, 36, I think, maybe it doesn't matter. But it took me, 20-some years, 25 years to finally make it there. But to me, New York is everything to me. And I don't think everybody needs to have this view, but I love being a little fish in a big pond, but also I love growing as a bigger fish and still knowing that there's no end. There's no end in New York City. It's just, it's infinite. And to me, I want to exist in a world that's infinite like that. So that was a huge celebration for me on November 7th, to be, at a penthouse on East 59th Street as a grown-up launching a book. And the whole night, I literally could just see my 10-year-old self going like, you finally did it.
I love it. I love it. What a wonderful way to close out this very vibrant and conversation that we've had. You are an amazing person, Talonya. Thank you so much for being with me today and sharing all of your insights. Let people know what the book cover looks like just in case they haven't seen it or see it on the bookshelves. Check it out. It is a really cool read. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I recommend it for all kinds of people, whether you're in a place and you just want a little extra inspiration. It's just an amazing book. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. And just give us, if you don't mind, like some final words of inspiration.
Yeah, I'm going to say, again, in the spirit of consistency, in the spirit of clarity and focus, I always tell people that, in the face of fear, because you'll reach fear every day, especially if you're an entrepreneur. In the face of doubt, because you will doubt yourself, you will doubt what you can and cannot do. And as you face uncertainty, because we are in uncertain times, I do believe that when you're at that point, you only have one decision to make, and the decision is, what will you go and do today? What will you #go do today? So that's my advice. It's always the same. What are you going to go do today?
Amazing. Thank you, Talonya. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to serving all of you.
Traveling. Enjoy. Be safe.
Thanks.
And I'll see you again when you're back in New York, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Ciao.